Welcome to RHI's Sociable City Interviews, where we meet with global thought leaders on nightlife and the social economy. Today, we are joined by Audrey Schaefer, the president of the National Independent Venue Association and communications director for I.M.P. and its legendary venues in Washington, D.C., including the 930 Club, the Anthem, Merriweather Post Pavilion, Lincoln Theater, and the Atlantis. Audrey is vice president of the board of directors for the National Independent Venue Association and headed communications when the association formed in 2020 and was part of the team that spearheaded the effort to gain $16 billion in emergency relief for independent venues in the U.S.
Hey, Audrey, it's such a great honor to have you here, and I'm so excited to talk with you. And I was really amazed when I was at the NIVA conference and they announced you as the president. And I thought, oh my goodness, I know somebody who's important. So um, it's really great to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here and to have Neva included.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I just want to, for those who are unaware, and like I said, we're going to be using this interview to introduce people to you who are going to come to Nashville for our annual event. Um, and I know that you are actively involved with a number of the venues in DC. So maybe just touch upon that real quickly, and then we'll talk about NEVA and your role there.
Sure. Well, I wormed my way into the company called I.M.P. about 18, 19 years ago. I was a huge fan of the 930 Club, which they own and operate, and just wanted to use my communication skills to work in music, which was kind of crazy because I'd been in telecom for 2 or 3 decades. But I love the place so much. And the first thing I got to work on was the Virgin Fest. And now we have 5 venues in DC. The 930 Club, the Atlantis is our newest. It's a 450 capacity place that is based on, it's a near replica of the original 930 Club. And we have the Atlantis, that was the Atlantis, and we have the Anthem, Lincoln Theater, and our our biggest place is Merriweather Post Pavilion.
When I was in NEVA, I overheard conversations of people saying, yeah, I got a 200, 300, 800. I'll talk in terms of seating capacity. I thought that was pretty interesting. But I guess within your industry, because I know I'm familiar with a lot of the venues that you have, it's like a continuum for performing artists. You got a little bar that I went to where you kind of got like really early risers, and then you got a little larger venue that they can make it to that space, and then they could end up going to the 930 Club, and then hopefully one day they'd love to play the anthem. So you have like a whole um, like a baseball team. You have a farm team, and you have the majors, and then some of them get to the World Series.
You hit it. That's exactly right. We, by our last venue that we launched 2 years ago is the smallest. And that's because history matters a lot. And to get to work with artists as they're on their way up, and hopefully we can help them get a foothold in the DC area. And from 450 to 1,200 capacity to 6,000 to 18,000. And my boss jokes, the owner of it, Seth Hurwitz, we get him on the way up and we get him on the way down.
There's so much I learned at the NEVA conference, and I interviewed Stephen Parker a couple of years ago, and was really quite insightful. But can you give a brief history for people who don't know about NEVA and how it evolved?
Well, sure. It did not exist when COVID hit. And a woman named Dana Frank, who owns First Avenue in Minneapolis, among other venues, she contacted me, like she contacted a handful of others, saying, she said, Audrey, you live in DC. You must know a lobbyist. If we don't lobby for emergency relief, we're all going to go under, all of the venues, because when you're forced to close without any planning, there's no way that the whole industry could survive if we didn't come together and lobby. And I thought it was absolutely crazy and insane and it would never work. And I said, sure, I'll help. And due to her enthusiasm and brilliance and our first executive director, the Reverend Moose, they built a team of other venue owners across the country, and we hired a lobbyist. The firm is Gump, and we went from not existing to within a year having 3,000 members. It was crucial that we had members in every single state because we knew that we couldn't, we needed the attention and understanding of Congress, which they were really busy on other things like getting a vaccine and masks and all of that and feeding hungry children. But we needed to make them care about us as local businesses and the magnets for their communities. And lo and behold, we came together, we lobbied our customers, which are golden, and got more than 2 million emails to go to Congress for them to support the Save Our Stages Act, which is the one that we got put forth in a bipartisan manner. And it was a $16 billion relief bill for us all.
Wow. Yeah, that's very impressive. And I know of people who survived just because of that.
Mm.
Even here in Santa Cruz, the Kumbwa Jazz Club, which is a nonprofit venue, but really it's like an institution in the city, and so it would be hard to have seen that close. Yeah, and I'm sure that's a story that's heard everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But so you understand what it means to the community culturally. It's not, there is the economic element, which is the reverberations of our being in our little communities or our big communities. Its implications for area businesses is enormous. But it's also those places that are so near and dear to your heart. And it might be where people have met friends for life, or they see bands that they'll never forget. It is a business, but it's one that's got so much heart and care, and it's what makes a community.
Mhm. Well, along those lines, when I was at your conference, there was the announcement of the economic study that you did, which really was quite amazing when you start to put all the numbers together and you start to show how many venues, the economic impact. But
Yeah.
disturbingly, there was also reference to the large number of businesses that are closing, or at least really having a hard time even making profitability. So it seems to me like there's a lot of still challenges for the industry, and particularly, I know you represent the independent venue operators, versus the Live Nation network of venue operators. But but so how can you see this trend, and what are the top priorities of NIVA members when you all get together to not only accentuate all of the positives that you just talked about, but also the challenges?
Yeah, I think the challenges in our business have always been there, but we just didn't talk about them. And now we do and we can. And while a lot of folks believed and hoped that once we got out of the COVID wave, then life would go back to normal. Well, part of life going back to normal it's a financially challenging environment, and rents are high, and insurance has gone through the roof, and the cost to pay licensing to the performance rights organizations that keep proliferating are high, and the cost of staffing is higher, and people are drinking less. So that is I think there are a lot of companies and are trying to figure out how to continue to keep their head above water, like we have tried to in the past. And some are, it's not like music venues weren't on thin margins before, but now it's something that people are really paying such close attention to, and it's hard, and competition
Mhm.
is hard. And one of the things that NIVA has done for members is a group pricing program. so that if you're ordering certain items like food or things that come out of a kitchen or cups or uh, really key items like that, you can get them at a discount.
Mm.
That's one of the things, and it's we're watching trends like the one about people drinking less. It's a fact, I think, nationwide. And young people are drinking less overall. And people are also, marijuana is becoming legal in a lot of places. And so people supplement with that, which means fewer drinks. So we have to figure out how to still keep the roof over our head and the lights on.
Over the years, I've witnessed this too, and I think your members have as well. I think we have such easy access to music. I mean, I just turned 75. So, for me, the
Congratulations.
big deal was you'd go to buy your 45 of the new single that was released, and you have a record player, and you really treasured that record. But today you could go into Spotify and listen to like hundreds of songs in a certain genre, and you're paying $25 a month, so I think people's perspective of music as a commodity that they're willing to pay for has probably also been damaged in this whole process, unless they're going to go see Taylor Swift and spend $500 for a ticket.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about NIVA members. There are venues, the smaller places, whether it's a 200 capacity or a 5,000 capacity, it's generally a lot more accessible for consumers and fans to come on in and have a good night without having to get a new mortgage.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people I was talking to in other parts of the country, like, well, how are things going for you now? And some of them are saying, well, we're actually doing better because people are coming here instead of going on vacation. Oh, well, there you go. It's really not a monolith. It is always been a challenge, and I think it still will be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, I can understand where they're challenged. I know also when I was at your conference too, there are other kind of uh, sharking type activities with the resale of tickets and other ways in which consumers are being exploited and the venues are paying the price. One thing I was surprised at was how people, even if they go to a concert, are asking for a refund on their ticket because they weren't happy with the concert. And that, again, takes away money from the venue operator.
Well, I'll start with the first part. Or actually, I'll start with the second part. I haven't really heard about people going to a concert and asking for money back because they didn't like the show any more than I get a refund on my movie ticket if I didn't like how the movie ended. But what we are really focused on is trying to get consumer protection laws in place because of how scalpers are taking advantage by either gouging, charging way over the face value, and the customer doesn't know that they're not buying from us, they're buying from a scalper. That happens because there are folks that set up websites to make it mimic ours, and which is just absolutely galling. People try to buy from us and they end up buying from somebody else that has got a one or part of the word different. But because they have all this money, they can invest in search engine optimization and their ads go way before ours do.
Mm.
But we are trying to also, one of the reasons why we work so hard to keep the tickets at face value is we want people to go to more shows.
Hmm.
If you get duped and buy a $500 ticket when there's a $50 ticket available, that's theoretically 9 shows you're not going to go to.
Mm.
And that hurts the artists that are coming around next. It hurts our employees that won't get to work as many shows. It makes people not want to buy a T-shirt or have another beverage. And that money is just leaving the community. Taxes are being paid on it here. It's not going into the music ecosystem. And we want the money to go to the artist or to keep it in the fans' pocket so they can come on out again.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned before, the licensing fees that venues have to pay. And I've been in the industry, and I remember back in my day, you had like ASCAP, and there was one other. And now you've got Sony, you've got all these companies that now are asking again license fees, never really knowing how it ends up in the artist's hands, but at least the venues are having to pay all of these licensing fees. It must add up.
It does, and they're really, we call them PROs, performance rights organizations, are just proliferating. And we have people who are working on that, trying to figure out how we can make it more fair. And you're right, it's like a black box where we have to pay this money, but it's not going to the artists that are playing our rooms. For the most part, it's going to the top 300 artists. Well, we've got thousands of artists that come through that are not in the top 300, and it's their work. They should be the ones getting paid for it, and that's what we're going to be fighting for.
Mm, okay. Now, I spoke with Stephen Parker recently. He said that there are 4 states that have a music office. I think he mentioned Texas, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And I found that interesting. So I know that NIVA works on some federal legislation and legislative work. And then obviously working at the state level can be difficult if you don't have a champion within the state. But it's similarly to the people who are working in from the nightcap membership, who are working locally on sound issues or food truck vendors or outdoor alcohol consumption, everything that happens locally, they're struggling to kind of work with the state, who sometimes is so distant from the realities of working locally. I would imagine the same is true with music. And how do you see having an office that really is a big advocate for music in a state where, some of the issues that they have to deal with are separate from a lot of the federal issues that NIVA might be working on?
Well, I think it is really, the local nature of it is absolutely crucial to the local economy. And it makes sense for us to have a seat at the table and a relationship either with, if it's a city or a state, for, so that when items that come up, either that have to do with taxes or minimum wage or sound ordinances, that we have a dialogue. And it just helps everybody. And we can, there are a lot of cities that people don't know what great music towns they are, but they are.
Hmm.
The people who are local do. And there are things that folks that are legislators can help to foster that financial environment that is being created and make it better, make it stronger. And the more that we talk and we have a seat at the table, the better it's going to be.
Well, we're getting close to the end here, and you've been terrific. You've covered a lot of ground. So what do you envision NIVA's future? What do you envision it becoming?
Well, as I'll mention her again, Dana Frank, when we were in the throes of trying to get the funding for Save Our Stages, which was 8 months of my life that felt like 800 hours a day underwater. But she said, first we survive, then we thrive.
Mm,
And I think about that every day. And even just things like the conference that was put together, it grows every year. I think it was 1,100 people were at it this year in
mm.
Milwaukee, and how we're able to learn from one another. We have a community, and there will always be challenges that we face, but when we can learn from each other, it makes all the difference in the world. Before, nobody talked to each other. I mean, the word independent was the most important telling word in the name of the association, and you wouldn't talk to competitors across town. And now, we're all, of course, competing voraciously with each other, but we have a trust and a camaraderie that if there is a common problem, we can talk to each other about it, and just to continue to foster that community, and also to work together to get legislation that protects our customers. That is one of the key points.
Well, this has been terrific, very informative. I learned something, and in fact, you corrected me on something that I thought I heard at your conference, but in fact, I misunderstood it. But you helped to
Oh,
clarify it. Well, thank you very much, Audrey. I'm
thank,
excited about having you join us in Nashville.
I'll be,
Obviously, a nice music city. I think it has a little bit of a reputation.
I've heard it
But yeah, you heard of it. Yeah, you heard of Nashville. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
so much. I'm honored.